stuff. It's very happy.
Yeah.
I have a red scarf to bump me up on color. Oh, we're live. All right.
Hi, everybody. Okay, we're in the weirdest, darkest hotel.
And talking about vitamin D, so it's kind of perfect. So I'm Dr. Kara. This is Dr. Hillary.
Hi.
We're
your doctors in demand.
We are, and we are having a live online retreat tomorrow. So we're together. So we're here preparing, and so we're in a hotel room. Sorry for the odd lighting.
It's really entertaining. You should see the setup. Our computer is stacked on a chair with Kara's suitcase smushed up against a mirror, and it's still pretty bad. So,
and we're on the run here because we're about to go out to this delicious lunch. So vitamin D.
We're talking about vitamin D.
We are. And I just put on sunblock, of course, because every morning I put on my zinc sunblock.
I don't.
I have to, without a doubt. And so what's going to happen when we walk, our lunch is overlooking the park where we are. And I'm so excited about it. But when we walk, we're going to get that sun exposure. So Hillary's going to be making some vitamin D. I'm not, because I did my whole neck.
Oh, look it. Because we're together. We're both called Dr. Kara Burkhardt.
Okay. There's two
Sorry,
of us today.
I flew all night, and so I'm a little punchy. I only slept like 2 to 3 hours, and I was just saying to Kara this morning, like, I think I'm officially too old for red eyes. Like, I don't think it's good for my aging situation.
East Coast, West Coast, one of us always ends up doing the red eye, and so it's Hillary's turn. So I'll do the talking on the vitamin D.
No, I can't talk about vitamin D.
Vitamin D is so important because most people don't know that it's a hormone. So vitamin D was found and categorized incorrectly, like everything in Chinese medicine essentially was translated incorrectly into English. Same thing with vitamin D. Researcher found it. He thought it's a vitamin, but it's actually a hormone. So it's really important to remember that vitamin D acts as a hormone. And why is that important? It's because, okay, we grew up with the milk ads, right? You do it for your bone health, but that is so just the tip of the iceberg with vitamin D. Hormones work in every single cell in your body and every system in your body. And so that's why we need to expand our thinking about vitamin D. It's a hormone. It works everywhere. It's so important for all of us.
Do you think the reason why I'm so short is that I didn't get enough vitamin D when I was young? My parents lived in Boston. I was born in Boston. And do you think that maybe, because nobody knew. So when Karen and I graduated from med school, this was one of those things where it was we thought that you could only give somebody 400 IUs of vitamin D, or that 800 IUs vitamin D orally was a toxic level.
Because it's fat soluble. So fat soluble vitamins store in your body, right? So those are A, K, D, and E. Those are fats. So they store in your fat cells and your body uses them as needed. So you can get real toxicity from those. Whereas the water soluble things, you urinate them out. So it's sort of like, you definitely can be taking too much.
And what came out after that was a really strong body of research, one connecting vitamin D to mental health. So as the northern latitudes go, or as you get more and more and more north, the suicide rate went up, and same did the rate for neuroautoimmunity. So the rate of MS is higher in Seattle or Canada than it is at the equator or in San Diego. So researchers were starting to really see this has a big impact on immune health. And then more and more research about colds, flus, the immune system, and vitamin D. So the immunity connection is so important. Mm-hmm. And for aging and growth, vitamin D is crucial for the absorption of calcium. And so for women who are vitamin D deficient chronically, or really at any point in their time, it's significantly impacting their bone matrix and their bone health.
So when we grew up, it's true that
I grew up in Vegas.
Okay, Vegas had a lot of sun. And Hillary loves the sun. But what is really interesting though is that when we grew up, people didn't take vitamin D because it was this it can get toxic. We were sort of scared of fat soluble.
Well, I wonder when it started to get fortified in the milk. We should see about that.
It was, but that was a little later than us in the 70s. We were 70s kids. I'm not sure it was fortified at that point. But I think that then we maybe didn't absorb as much calcium as we should have, and that could have been a problem for people. But in reality, we just don't get it in our diet. So diet sources are seriously lacking.
But the
right?
difference from the 70s is we didn't really have sunscreen.
We didn't. That's
And so
absolutely true.
when people were out, they were out. And so I grew up in a place. So the really interesting thing is the line, and I have no idea who made this or why, but the line across the United States is Tennessee, Nashville. Nashville, Tennessee is the line that divides the country. And if you live above that line in the winter, you absorb 0 vitamin D from the outside, from the sun in the winter months in the United States.
So you make it, your skin cells.
Okay, so our
synthesize
skin
it.
makes vitamin D, and that's why we keep talking about sun, that you get it from the sun helps your skin cells synthesize vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting is I live in California. I live in a very fairly sunny place in California. We have an
Very
intense
funny.
winter.
Very sunny.
We have an intense rainy winter. But I'm living in like the Bay Area, right? So every single one of my patients, every single one, if they're not supplementing, is low on vitamin D. Every single one.
It's very rare for us to find an adequate level. So sometimes 30 is the marker, right? And that's ridiculous.
Really low.
It's one of these lab tests that
It has a range. It has this huge range again. So
if you're, below 30, we can say you're truly deficient, and that's a diagnosis that people make. But a lot of your doctors look at it and you'll be like 31, 32, 38, and nobody says you need to supplement vitamin D. And we're here to say you absolutely do need to supplement vitamin D.
If your doctor orders it. I mean,
If
it's
you see the
becoming
number.
more routine.
Mhm.
It's definitely becoming more routine, but like at Kaiser, they don't order it. Many places don't order it. And then there was a backlash where, like Kara was saying, that her insurance, that insurance doesn't cover it. It's
Many of my patients, because the government sort of says we know every adult is low in vitamin D. We know that these levels are safe, like maybe 1,500 IUs or 2,000 IUs a day are safe for most adults, that you should just be telling people to take the vitamin D and maybe don't test it in everyone. It depends on sort of which. It's the Endocrine Society says 1,500 IU. It depends on which society you look at, but they think, hey, it's vitamin D. You can have people just take it. Why are we going to pay for the testing? I get that. So
I love the testing because I'm a perfect example. I live in the sun. I get a lot of sun. I should, and everyone's going to yell at me, and I'll yell at myself at some point. And when we're doing all this anti-aging work, but I don't use a ton of sunscreen, that's just not my jam. But there's really 2 genes that Kara and I both did these genetic tests that were so enlightening for us both. And the 2 genes that were tested for, I was heterozygous for. So I not only don't absorb it well, but I don't transport it well. So I've always had a super low vitamin D considering my sun exposure. And again, that's my naivety. Like, just because I live in California, I'm by far above that Nashville line. And so we don't get any in the winter. Mm-hmm. And in the summer, and then I work indoors, right? So most people work indoors. Look at this shit. It's hilarious. It's like the worst lighting.
But that's like a big deal.
But the genetics are really interesting. So yes. I still advocate for testing. Mm-hmm. I like to know where my patient's level is, because then we supplement based on the level. Right. If you
retest based on, okay, they did this, they did it with the vitamin K without, how did it go up? You have to I think it's one of those markers we should all be testing.
And there are definitely hacks. So for my patients, if their insurance won't cover it or if it's really expensive, and I just have to say, I had a patient run it through their insurance, through a Quest lab, and obviously I didn't code it right or something. She came back with a $1,200 charge for the vitamin D test, which is makes me want to stick a knife in an eyeball, because if I could go directly to another lab that's kind of hacking the system and you pay cash and they charge
$10. I just ordered this yesterday.
$11. And they charge my patient, and it's just
it's absurd.
So do the research ahead of time so that you don't, and there are some codes that your doctor can look at. So But knowing the level tells you what you need to supplement. And for a lot of protocols for women with PCOS, endometriosis, any fertility issue, thyroid issues, if they're on
obesity, vitamin D is
type
very
2
deficient
diabetes,
in obesity. Yes.
If you're on birth control, birth control can dump your vitamin D and some other things. So like it should definitely be part of an annual screening.
But also for me, I'm really concerned because it's this neurosteroid hormone, which means that our brains really need it. And, I'm at the point in my life where I'm concerned about losing memory and early onset dementia and all those things. And vitamin D is incredibly important for our brains. And so supplementing is one thing, but I will test it a few times a year on myself just to see where am I? Because I live in New England and we just don't get any sun. And even if I do, if I go skiing in the winter, I always put sunblock on. So it's kind of a problem.
But when you're skiing in the winter, you're not making vitamin D. That's the thing.
I know, but I sunblock because the light off the snow will burn me in 2 seconds. So I'm not even getting any, right? And so why don't you wear sunblock? Like, is it it's thick and gross?
It
gives you acne?
Literally, it's like I just never grew up with it.
Well, because lots of people complain. So I'm going to just say right now that
we're going to do a sunblock show.
Yeah, because there are companies.
Well, okay, that's not fair. I use my what I put on my face has 15.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have that. I just don't apply extra, but I know I should. So
I need zinc ones, and I like the ones specifically made for face because they're thinner. There are oil-free, nice sheer zinc sunblocks out there, and they're amazing. And they don't clog your pores. You don't feel it. It's really nice. Mine sometimes is. Oh, I'm wearing the tinted one today. So you can find a really good one. So playing around with the face sunscreens is like the first place to start.
But that is a tangent. Like part of what caused the big vitamin D deficiencies is that people were so sunscreened in the summer,
right.
Like that we do have to allow some natural sunlight on our skin. It really contributes to aging. And when Kara's talking about this, really working in the brain, the thing that I see for patients that are chronically or vitamin D deficient is that they have chronic fatigue and what we call dysthymia. It's and sometimes appearing as depression or anxiety, but it's the sort of I just sort of don't really care about my day that much. It's just the lack of oomph. And so many of those patients, and it's amazing how many patients experience that, sometimes get put on antidepressants or not, but they're not being tested for their vitamin D level. I just had a patient last week where it came back and the vitamin D levels at 8. I mean, so low. That's so low. It's putting her bones at major risk. She doesn't go outside. It's obvious she's super pale and she's so depressed. And so it's just like, okay, this is just, we're going to keep, it's just a public health urgent issue.
Right. And I'm really surprised all the time when a new patient comes in and they're not taking vitamin D. I'm sort of like, you live in Connecticut. Why are you not taking vitamin D? It's because we drop off on our supplements. Maybe you should be doing it, but you forget. So remember, it's soluble. So if somebody's actually deficient, they'll give, the prescription is 50,000 units once a week to get that number up, right? So you can take, and of course you need to look at your number and talk to your doctor, but you can take it and it'll store in the body. So it's not something necessarily you have to take 1,000 every day or something. You could maybe take 7,000 at once that week. There is a way to supplement it that you don't have to maybe think about, I have to take the drops or the pill every day. You can put drops in a smoothie. How easy is that?
Many vitamins, many multivitamins only have 400. And so you have to take additional on top of your if it's not good. Our prenatal has 2,000.
Definitely.
Because it's so important for fertility and so important for breastfeeding. So it's not even a question. And babies are supposed to be getting supplement as well. So if your pediatrician hasn't recommended vitamin D and you have a newborn, then make sure that you look at a schedule from the American Association of Pediatrics and get your baby on. Most pediatricians are on the train, but
and I think one of the things is that we like the idea of, you get all your nutrients from your food. Fundamentally, that makes really a lot of sense. But vitamin D is not like that, because the foods, how many shiitake mushrooms are you going to really eat? Caviar, how much caviar are you going to eat? We just don't have, I mean, you just don't have these food sources every day for vitamin D. So let's just like acknowledge that I'm not getting it in my diet. I certainly am not drinking enough of the vitamin D rich milk, right? Like, I don't even know how much would you have to drink of the milk to even get.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is, but you need to really think about like, okay, vitamin D is something I cannot really get from my food sources, so I need to supplement it. All right.
And yeah, and if you are struggling with infertility, anxiety, depression, if there's any osteoporosis in your lineage at all as a woman,
or if obesity, insulin resistance problems, all of these things,
PCOS, endometriosis, like any kind of inflammatory issue, or if you're on medications that block the absorption, you need to do it. And a lot of the doctors that are trying to prevent cancer or prevent a return of cancer, like their patients at a very robust level, like 60 to 80. So like just skimming by isn't great. Like you want to go for optimal and robust levels of vitamin D. You don't need excess at all.
No,
like you don't want to go over 100
or 80.
You want to be really conscientious and work with your doctor, but you want a robust level of vitamin D.
Okay. Yeah. Vitamin D, we're going on a walk.